Day at Town Hall, and just a reminder, as it says at our place, and welcome any questions from folks as we go through this, but please speak into the microphone so people listening at home or on the recording will hear every word. So this is our annual committee orientation, or in the charter, I think it's appropriately called multi-member bodies. If folks haven't heard that term, that means anybody that serves on a board, a commission, a committee. What else is there? I think I got them all. Task force. I mean, any creatures that get creative for you to serve. And that's kind of my opening, is just to welcome you all. There is a Zoom link on the agenda for the meeting. There is a phone number if folks would like to dial in. It is Monday, October 6th, 2025, a little after 5 p.m. And again, I'm Kevin Galligan, Chair of the Select Board. Just to welcome you, introduce you to this program that we do each year. We tend to get it in around September. For whatever reason, schedule, life, it's now happening today. So that's all good. But only thing I want to say is, again, for any folks in the room, any folks listening, or for the posterity of the tape, thank you. Thank you to the volunteers who serve. We could not accomplish all that we do. And just another plug, if you haven't seen the town manager's recent monthly report, just scan through all of what's happening in this wonderful little town. And it's a lot because of committees doing the hard work, moving projects forward, saying we need money, put it in the warrant, in the budget, and we're doing it. So again, just a quick thank you for your service. Hopefully showing up for these meetings, following things that you'll get reminders from town council, like open meeting law and things like that, is not so much of a burden to offset the joy that you get from serving, because you should feel good about service. And I know I do. So that's my intro. I'll turn it over to our town clerk, Kelly Darling, to take us through the next sections.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. First of all, I'd just like to say that the town clerk's office is a resource for you. Please feel free to call us and ask questions about open meeting law, posting your minutes, your agendas, how you do this, how you do that. We're happy to help you. And if we don't know the answer, we can get in touch with Mike quickly to get an answer, or we can help you. So feel free to reach out to us for those kinds of questions. When you're appointed to a board or committee by the select board, you must be sworn in by the town clerk's office prior to voting on any action. So you can come in the day after you get appointed, we'll swear you in, you'll be good to go. If you can't make it during business hours, again, reach out to me, because I can be flexible, and I'm happy to meet someone at 6 o'clock before their meeting, or do whatever it takes to make sure that we're all following open meeting law appropriately. All meeting scheduling is done through my office. So we have two main meeting rooms here in Town Hall, as you're all probably aware. This is the Nauset room, and downstairs in the smaller conference room is the smaller meeting room is the Skakit room. We have oftentimes about 50 multi-member boards, multi-body member boards that meet in this building, and we have two meeting rooms. So scheduling is really crucial. We do a schedule a year in advance. That doesn't mean that we can't alter things, change things, move things, but it means we want a general idea. If you meet monthly at the same time, we want to know that so we can put you in, get your spot saved for you. One of the issues was that we do offer Zoom for all of the meetings through our media operations department. We do have to have a buffer between meetings. So your meeting, you're booked for 2 hours. So if a meeting is from 4 to 6, that means the next meeting can't start until 6:15. There's a period of time where media operations has to do switchover. Peggy and Mia are very accommodating, but they need time to make that switch. So we always have to have a small buffer between meetings. In order to, once you've booked your room and you want to post an agenda, the agenda requirements include day, date, time, and location. The Zoom link that is given to your board or committee, it stays the same for all of your meetings, so that's a handy feature. You must submit your agenda to the town clerk's office. You can walk it in if you wish, or you can email it. If you're emailing it, we ask that you either use our clerk@town.orleans.ma.us email or send it to all myself, Bethany, and Jen. The reason we do this is if someone's out of the office or someone misses something, we have 3 sets of eyes on everything, so we make sure your agendas get posted. We ask that if you're emailing, you shoot for 72 hours in advance of your meeting to send it to us. The law requires 48 hours, and that's fine. But if you're gonna be sending it to us, if your meeting is at 4 o'clock on Friday and it's now 3:15 on Wednesday and you're sending the agenda, please call. Please call and let us know that you're posting something that you need it done. We want to get your agendas posted, but sometimes we need to know it's coming. We will always respond to your emails with received and posted, always. If you do not receive that response, please follow up with us. Our official posting location is the town website, so all of your agendas are posted on the town website. They're linked through the boards and committees calendar, and they're also linked on the Agenda Center section of the website. You may sometimes need to revise your agenda, and that is fine. What we ask that you do is please specify on your agenda what you're revising. So use underlining, crossouts, an asterisk, change the font, anything that would indicate very obviously what you've changed. Material being added within that 48 hours should only be should only be items that the chair was unaware of prior to the meeting that have to be discussed at this meeting. So Michael will go into that a little more detail about what's really required, but in general, you should your revisions need to come to us before the 48-hour deadline. Meeting minutes should be created and approved by your board or committee in a timely manner and then submitted to the town clerk's office. The general rule is within 3 meetings or 30 days. The minutes need to include, again, the date, time, place of the meeting, who was present, a summary of discussion of the topics, and votes. They must list all the votes, who voted for what, who voted yay, who voted nay. You can send your minutes to my office electronically to be posted on the website. You can also walk them in if you prefer to do that. One important thing to remember is under the open meeting law, minutes even in draft form are public record. So if someone attends your meeting or watches it and says they want a copy of your minutes and you're like, I just have this scrawl on paper, that is fine. Just make a copy of it and send it. It's public record. And I know Michael's gonna go over this in a bit more detail, but I just wanna mention it. During your meeting, it's very important that you maintain a quorum. So if a member has to leave, if a member doesn't show, you can't have your meeting. If you lose your quorum during the meeting, you have to stop. Very important to keep that in mind. And that is all I have to say for the moment.
Great. Questions for Kelly? Please.
Carol Anati, Marine and Freshwater Quality and Personnel Advisory Board. Just a really quick question, following up on that point about quorum. I understood, and so I'm happy to be corrected, that if, somebody needed to leave and you lost your quorum, you could still continue to have the meeting, but you couldn't have a vote.
No.
Counselor, would you like to weigh in?
Yeah, so the loss of a quorum is the end of the meeting.
Okay.
And it is because the open meeting law requires that folks participate. And if you sit and discuss the matter and not vote on it, you're still participating in the matter and it's being discussed and it will ultimately be voted on and they will have missed that discussion portion, which they could have participated in. So the Attorney General's office says that without a quorum, the only motion that's in order is a motion to adjourn.
All right, thank you.
You heard it here. Yes, please come on up.
Hi, Joan Francolini, CPs. When you said you have to track the yeas and nays, you need the people's name, or is it just 4-0, 4-2? Or would you rather us say who voted what.
It's better to say who voted what, particularly if you're using a Zoom feature and people aren't all in the room. I think all votes done in a hybrid format need to be done.
So in the minutes, it
By
has to
roll
have the
call.
people's name, who voted and how they voted?
It doesn't, I misspoke a little bit. It doesn't have to, but I do believe if you're doing a hybrid meeting, all votes have to be by roll call.
By roll call.
No, it is by roll call, but in the minutes, I just want to make sure we understand. I can still say it's, 5-2, or you want the 5 yeas and the 2 nays?
One shortcut I've seen done, and I think it's only in select board, is, and we've had very few split votes, meaning certain number in favor, some against. Since you've listed your attendees, you're required to.
Right.
So you say, you know who your voting members are by the minutes. Generally, if the vote's 4-1, then you just bracket or parentheses that one as the named individual who was not voting. That way, by process of elimination, people can say, oh, everybody else voted yes. So it's a shortcut to getting,
Okay, because we weren't doing that ever.
right.
Thanks.
Because you always meet, and have unanimous
No,
votes.
that's enough.
Just kidding, just kidding. Yeah.
Just a quick follow-up. If you're on a regulatory board, Conservation, Board of Health, Zoning Board, Planning Board, you should put down how each member voted.
Yeah.
So that's important in the minutes.
Yeah, a lot of, Kelly, you're good?
Yes.
Yeah. Any other questions for town clerk? And we can certainly come back. We're here for the duration, but a lot of what you heard from our town clerk, and you'll also hear from town council, is essentially all these steps and reminders are just to keep us out of trouble. There are those out there that send in, what are they called? Freedom of Information Public Records requests, and they can get onerous. They can be any and all meeting materials of the last 2 years on this topic, and it can get very time consuming. So the more precise we are of following these steps, the easier it is to, number one, respond, including having draft minutes, but pretty much limits the amount of using this gentleman's time, which is always good. David, come on up, please.
So I've assumed with the new fire rescue committee that if I announce the vote passes unanimously, that's sufficient? Because we've listed all the members in there.
That would be, if it's unanimous vote and you've listed the members.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Good. So next part of the agenda is just a brief recap of the Select Board Liaison Program and a few other things. So as folks are aware, at the start of each cycle after the annual votes are done in May, usually in the June-July period, we attempt to get a table put together that assigns to each committee a Select Board liaison, and new, and it's on the table in front, are also staff liaisons. So this is relatively new in terms of staff, but let me start with the Select Board Liaison Program. It's a fairly simple paragraph in our policies, but the point of having a Select Board liaison to your committee is so that you can bounce off any concerns you might have, whether it be the timing of getting something into a warrant or sensitive issues coming up for the committee. You want some help in terms of navigating, how that should flow, or bouncing anything off of the select board that you're interested. Only note I will say, and I enjoy going to meetings in person or on Zoom, but some select board members, and it's right in the policy, just the time limited. So because there's a liaison, don't expect your select board member always sitting in the room with you, because they just can't always make it. However, they are a resource for you. So particularly through the chairs or vice chairs, if you have anything that pops up in advance of your meeting or after that you want to reach out to your liaison, do so. And generally they'll say, I've got an answer for you, or they may have to run it through town hall for you. But use them, similar to what you heard town clerk say, is, we want you to be productive, efficient, successful in all of what you're doing, and use the select board as help in that. And again, adding to that support, this past year, and it started last year, you now have staff liaisons who are a little bit more the nuts and bolts of, getting something on the warrant and filling out supporting information that's needed for a warrant article. We've seen that start to take place a lot more, and I think it's turned out to be a really good resource for you, because then by the time, say, a warrant article that's coming from one committee is in front of the select board, we've got all the information to support it, and it makes for a much smoother vote. A lot fewer questions are asked, nor do we have to bring the full committee or the chair of a committee in, because a lot of that housekeeping has been done in advance. So again, use your staff liaison and your select board liaison to your benefit. We also are in, I think, our third year of having what we call monthly chairs meeting. Molly does, I'd say, all things committee, meaning new appointments, reappointments, new volunteers stepping up, and she also has been helpful guiding the agendas and the follow-up to chairs, vice chairs, or designees that come once a month. It's the second Wednesday, as in tomorrow morning, right? Wednesday morning, rather, at 8:30. And we spend about an hour just kind of covering bases in terms of what's going on, what things are bubbling around town, whether it be recreation, for example, or, town meeting coming up, or planning for, articles on the town meeting. So the chairs meetings have been a good way of bridging what a lot of people have kind of criticized us for having silos, where we focus on just one committee and lose the fact that so many activities we do. I'm looking at our Orleans Elementary School. You've got school activities that bridge over to recreation, that bridge over to projects. So by doing the chairs group, we're actually sitting and exchanging ideas cross-committee and purposes, which is really helpful. So hopefully it's helping you. I do know from the select board level, it's a big, big help. It really helps us get a sense of what might be bubbling. And the last thing I'd just say, and some committees use them more than others, but each committee does have a committee webpage. You can always go there to see where your agenda is sitting, your minutes, whether it be archived minutes or recent. Molly maintains the names of all your committee members, but on the left side, if you look at that committee webpage, that's kind of a tab for you to populate anything and everything you want. Some folks don't use it. Some people load it up with, I'm looking at marine freshwater quality. You've got a lot of helpful information about all the different evaluation studies that have been done on our ponds, and it really helps people understand, how did we get here? Well, go to the committee's webpage. There's a host of resources there, and certainly utilize them. And again, to get anything posted on committee webpages, Molly?
So I don't know if Amanda, everybody may have met or has heard of Amanda Converse. She just joined us last year. She's kind of our media or not media, our public relations and communications. She's starting the process of, my microphone, sorry. She's starting the process of, along with Mia, combing through web pages, and that's departments. And I don't know if she has gotten to committees yet, but that will be coming down the line, making sure that all your information, all the documents you have up there are current and worth being up, and just kind of organizing. And so that'll be coming down the line. But so that just one thing to add there. So if she hasn't started that process with committees, that might be a few months down the road, because it is kind of, we have a lot of web pages, a lot of departments, a lot of committees, and it'll be kind of a larger process.
So if a committee,
Larger overhaul.
Molly, for example, wanted to, post a report that's germane to stuff they're working on,
They should go through their staff liaison
there you go.
and talk to them and make sure that it's something that should be up there, and then they will relay that to Mia and Peggy.
And just an example that came up on the Wastewater Management Advisory Committee, for some reason, because I've always used committee web pages almost as a resource for me to prepare for meetings. It's like, It's certainly not on my desk, because you don't want to look at my desk, but I can certainly find information on a webpage. And I noticed that our most recently state-approved amended wastewater management plan wasn't where I thought it was. And again, our staff liaison is George Meservy. Asked him, and he's already on it. So it can work pretty well when you go through your staff liaison.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's my spiel. Any questions about select board support or liaison programs? Kelly, please.
I just have one note to add about the website. You can sign up for agenda alerts from all boards and committees or particular boards and committees. This is very useful, particularly for chairs and board secretaries, as they can see that they're in live time, that their agendas are posted. But it's also very useful to see what's going on, who's meeting when. You can get a lot of good information out of that, and I highly recommend people sign up for that.
Excellent. So back to Molly, because brand spanking new, we have an updated guide for multi-member bodies. So Molly, why don't you take us through?
So Kelly and I went through the old handbook, which we've had for many years, and just kind of reorganized, cleaned it out, added important things, brought it up to date, you know, so to speak. So everything in here most things in here are things that you already know, that you already practice every day. There's nothing new in here per se. Kelly went over, you know, the agendas and minutes, which are super important. While there's nothing new in here, everything in here is important and relevant to you and any seat on the committee, chair, vice chair, regular member, associate, whatever. I think a lot of this gets kind of, you know, you get comfortable, you've been on the committees for a little while, you know, a few years, and you kind of get comfortable, and you start to maybe forget, a lot of the important, like the foundations of things. So, not gonna go through this word for word, but it is really important for you guys to take a look at it, refresh yourselves. On the back, we put a couple for any of the newer members. There's the multi-member body policy, which is also up on the website as well. But that's there for your convenience to reference if you need it. There's also the guidelines for the staff liaisons, which kind of tell you what you should and shouldn't be using your staff liaison for, or how they can help you. And then there's also a sample agenda and sample minutes. And you don't have to follow those to a T, but they're just there if you wanted to use them as a guide. We get questions all the time, you know, what should my agenda look like? You don't need a seal on it. It doesn't have to be, right, Kelly? It's not, you just, what Kelly had said, your committee name, date, time, place, and
And what you're going to
your
talk
Zoom.
about.
And what you're gonna talk about. So it's not, not difficult, but it's there if you need it. But, yeah, I mean, there's, it's the standard stuff, but it is worth a read, just worth a refresher, because it's all pretty important stuff, so.
One thing too, is I was looking at this is on the last page, the sample meeting agenda for, meeting minutes. This is a relatively short select board meeting.
I
Molly.
kind of made it,
It was nice.
I cut and
I wish-
pasted a little bit
wish We
there.
had hour and 15-minute select board meetings, but one thing that is relatively new, I'd say, Mike, in the last 3 or 4 years, is any documents you refer to in the meeting, they don't have to be stapled and, attached, but they have to be listed. So if, for example, not to pick on marine freshwater, but if, for example, in your deliberations, you refer to I'll just pick a Woods Hole Group report from, whatever. If that research is part of your discussion, you need to list that document here and have it accessible if the public ever wants it. So that's one thing you're starting to see more and more, any listed documents that were part of the meeting. And I would just note, only because some people have say during a select board meeting, didn't you see my text? I purposely do not look at my phone during meetings, because if there's a text that brings up any discussion during the meeting, that text has to come in and be listed as a document as part of the meeting. So be careful if you start to open emails and you're saying, oh, did you hear? And you're opening an email, that email has to come into and be part of your record. So anyway, not to kind of steal Mike's thunder, but he's advised this over the years, and I always listen to every word he says. So I can't thank you enough, Molly. This new guideline, the booklet, is really nice. And Kelly, thank you for the update. And of course, it's online if you don't want printed copies. So last but not least, before other Q&A, Town Council Mike Ford is going to review a host of things that are always good reminders for some of us that have been on committees for a few years.
Thank you, Kevin. First, kudos to the office staff on this new guide. It really is much more streamlined, easy to read, quick to get around. I thought it was a great addition. Yeah. So, going to touch on a couple of things that Kelly touched on, but maybe with just a little different point of view on some of them. First, on taking the oath of office. Sounds simple, it is. Please do it. I've run into situations where on a regulatory board, again, conservation, health, zoning, planning, where somebody was reappointed and didn't get sworn in. And it became, they were sitting on an issue that was a controversial issue and ultimately was challenged, and then their ability to take that vote was challenged because they hadn't been sworn in. And so that's not something you think about. You just think, gee, I need to, next time I'm at town hall, just make sure I stop by. Well, make sure you do that. It's important to check that box to take the oath of office. Get down there, see Kelly, whoever the town clerk is, or the assistant town clerk, and get sworn in. It can have implications down the line. In terms of agenda posting, the rules that apply to an item being discussed and perhaps more importantly voted on at a meeting is that they have to be in the agenda. And agendas, of course, are put together under the open meeting law by the chair. They're the responsibility of the chair to get it done, get it posted with the assistance of staff if you have it, or otherwise some boards and committees I know are doing their own posting. But the chair is responsible. That's one of the things that's kind of put on the responsibility of a chair under the revisions to the open meeting law made a few years back. I want to emphasize that the revisions, if an item is going to be an item that is going to be discussed and importantly voted on or potentially voted on, it too must meet the 48-hour rule. So you can't call Kelly the day before or send a quick revision in 30 hours or something and get an item on the agenda. Now, there is an exception, and that exception is laid out in the open meeting law that if it's an item that was not reasonably foreseeable by the chair, such that the chair, he or she, could have got it listed and on the agenda from a time standpoint, then it may still be able to be acted on if action is needed before a next legally meeting could be posted. So there's, I won't say it has to be an emergency, but generally matters of an emergency nature where there is a timeline that must be met and can't be met if you follow the rules and repost it. So it's a pretty narrow exception, but it is there in the event and that something comes up like that. And if you have something and you're kind of waffling about it as to whether, gee, we are able to take action on this because if we posted, we'd miss a deadline or something, always feel free to reach out to the town manager's office and somebody will, or Kelly's office, and we'll get you an answer as to whether we agree. And yeah, that's something that you're free to go ahead and act on. Echoing Kevin, and again, really important in terms of regulatory boards. It's important in all boards because it's required in all boards, but particularly regulatory boards that deliberate, adjudicate, and come to a decision with findings, that anything that is referred to, even by a speaker, a document, at a hearing, you got to get a copy of. It's supposed to be part of your minutes. So if somebody gets up, makes comments, quotes a document, you have to ask them for that document, so that that document can be entered into the record. Kind of a tedious thing, it's, and the meeting gets moving along and you kind of forget about it, but you really need to make every effort to do that because the law is very clear that that's a requirement. As Kevin said, all of those documents don't have to go to Kelly's office. They do need to be listed in the minutes that the following documents were, but they can stay in wherever that regulatory board keeps its records. It can stay there. As long as they're accessible, somebody comes into Kelly and gets a copy of the minutes and said, gee, I want this. Kelly can send them down to where those actual minutes are kept, and those exhibits, let's hope, are there so that they can be provided. But that's kind of the way that works logistically. Talk a little bit about a quorum and majority. It's pretty straightforward for most multi-member boards. A majority of the committee members is a quorum, and a majority of a quorum carries a vote. So if you've got a 5-person board and 3 show up, you've got a quorum, and a 2-to-1 vote carries the day on something, except certain regulatory boards. There are exceptions. For example, your zoning board of appeals, if they're considering an appeal of a decision of the building commissioner, enforcement action, a variance, a special permit, a 4 out of 5 vote, extraordinary majority is required. So in their case, they can't even open the meeting with 3 because they can't consider those matters because they couldn't vote on them anyway because they need at least 4 members to pass. So I've been asked many times, gee, if we only have 4 and somebody needs a 4 out of 5 vote, should we go forward? And in those situations, you should bring it to the attention of the applicant that you do have a quorum because you have 4 members there, and all 4 people, if they vote in favor of the petition, could pass it. However, the applicant could request that it be put over to the next meeting where there is a full complement, and the applicant could have a full board to present to, and then a 4-to-1 vote would carry the day. So if you're a chair of a regulatory committee, best to give that opportunity to the applicant to see whether they would like to continue in that situation so they have a full board to present to. Quorum must be kept. Oftentimes, regulatory boards have multiple public hearings on something that can be complicated. And it's important when you vote, if you're a member that's been sitting on one of those, that you've been able to attend all evidentiary sessions. So if you're there the first night, you miss the second night of a hearing, can you still, if you show up the third night, participate? Yes. There's a rule called the Mullen Rule, because there was a case by somebody by the name of Mullen who brought a case against the town of Brewster on this issue, and we've now gotten a Mullen Rule that's come out of that. And that is that the person who missed the meeting can participate in that next meeting and vote, provided that they review the record, which means if there is a video of it, that they've watched it. They review any minutes, and oftentimes they're just draft minutes at that point that are available. And they sign an affidavit that they've done that, and that affidavit is entered into the record of the meeting, and the chair should make the public, and particularly the applicant, aware that somebody has gone through that process, and as a result, they're going to participate and vote. You can only do that once. You can't miss 2 meetings. So there's no 2 passes and vote on the Mullen Rule. But you are able to do that. The other question that I see, particularly with regulatory boards, that I think needs a reminder is hybrid meetings are still allowed under an amendment to the open meeting law, and It has a sunset date that's coming up next year. Maybe it'll be extended, maybe it won't. But currently, if you have a hybrid meeting where some members are present but they're remote, every vote has to be a roll call vote. So just like you were in executive session or something, that every single vote has to be a roll call vote. Even procedural votes to close the hearing, to go into discussion, or those kinds of procedural votes should also be roll call votes. And it's important because I think the open meeting law views it as, gee, they can go and read the minutes or they could watch the tape, but sometimes it's difficult to, if some of the meeting was remote, to be able to see the members that weren't present and how they participated in the meeting. So they want to make sure that their votes are recorded in a roll call vote. So that's an important item. There are exceptions to holding meetings in open. That's called an executive session. Most of you don't get involved in that. Board of Selectmen has executive sessions regularly because they have a number of matters, subject matter areas, where executive sessions are needed and appropriate and authorized under the open meeting law. And they need to make use of those in order to carry out their business. So I'm not going to go through all of the reasons that you can go into executive session. If you're on a regulatory board, and there has been an appeal of your decision, and you're going to discuss the appeal and in an effort to either try and resolve it or to determine what the status of the appeal is and how it should be handled, that can be an executive session. And that's pending litigation. But in those situations, I would strongly encourage you to coordinate with your staff person for that regulatory board to make sure that if an executive session is going to be held, it is done in accordance with the statute. There is specific language that has to be in the motion to go into executive sessions, the reasons why, what the matter is, and the chair there has a responsibility as well to make a determination that a public session would have a detrimental effect on, be it the negotiating or litigating position of the regulatory board that's going into executive session. So a lot there, all the more reason why, if you're considering one of those, make sure you check with your staff person and they'll assist you in making sure that motion is right and the chairman's finding to go into executive session is correct.
Can I add, Mike? So along the lines of what Mike referred to with executive session, I believe there are, 10 exemptions that could be utilized?
Yes.
By,
Yep.
And you do have to actually list what that exemption is with enough understanding that the public can say, oh, I get it. It's strategy for collective bargaining or whatever. The other thing related to your agendas is each item has to have enough specificity that an average person could understand, oh, this is what they're discussing, and either be prepared to say a few words. So, for example, you can't just have at your end agenda other topics of interest. That doesn't give anybody a clue what you're talking about, and nor should it give you the right to just say, let's talk about this today.
Yeah.
The agenda has got to give everybody a sense of what you're going to be talking about so that they could prepare and offer comments if they wanted to.
Absolutely. And particularly important if it's something that's going to be voted on. And you anticipate that, it's always good to put that in the agenda as well that may be voted on, so that people are alert. Gee, I thought you were just going to talk about it. I didn't realize you were going to vote on it. I would have been there. So thank you, Kevin. So a couple of comments on the conflict of interest statute. General Laws, Chapter 268A. It applies to all employees of the town. You might say, well, geez, I don't get paid for my job. How am I an employee? Under the conflict of interest statute, you are employees, not in the worker-employer sense, but for the conflict of interest statute, you are. And most of you are special municipal employees, having been so designated by the Board of Selectmen, which changes the rules a little bit, but not substantially. Just a couple of things about the conflict of interest statute as reminders to consider when you decide whether or not you're sitting on something that maybe you need to think whether you should recuse yourself or not. First, you can't participate in any matter in which either you or a member of your immediate family, so father, mother, wife, brother, sister, or children, that's the immediate family, have a direct or indirect financial interest. So those are usually things that are not hard to figure out, but that's the test. And what do you do if you believe that there is, and it could be a positive effect on your financial situation or a negative effect? Either one is the same trigger. Then you need to recuse yourself. And recuse yourself means, it does not mean you sit there and you're in the discussion and you say, gee, were I voting, I'd do this, but I'm going to recuse myself. So you have to step down at the beginning of the discussion, because the prohibition is not simply on voting, it's on participating. And participating means discussing. So it's not enough to simply sit there and then at the end say, gee, I've got a conflict, I'm gonna sit down. You should do that at the beginning. Do you have to leave the table? There's not a bright line rule that you do, but there is a Supreme Court case that suggests that best practice is that, yes, you step down and sit in the audience, or in some cases, leave the room, and just so you're not around, and then you can come back in when it's over, depending on what the item is. So that's the one that we run into most frequently. Question I'm asked, have been asked in New Orleans recently, have I lost my First Amendment right if I step down? And the answer is no. If you have a direct or an indirect financial interest in something, or your family does, and you recuse yourself appropriately and you go and sit in the audience, you can represent your own interest. In other words, you haven't lost your First Amendment right to speak to that board. However, you cannot speak on behalf of anybody else. So that would be representing somebody, which is prohibited. So if you're belong to a group that has an interest in a particular matter, you can get up and speak for yourself, but you can't speak for that group. You can't be representing anybody else. But in terms of your First Amendment right, you've got every right to make a comment, having stepped down appropriately and sat in the audience and get up. I'd strongly recommend when you do get up, you remind everybody, particularly for those on television, that you are rising as an individual and not as a member of the committee having stepped down. So, but there is a way to do that. You still have First Amendment rights. Also in the Conflict of Interest statute, there are prohibitions on holding more than one contract. I don't think most of those are relevant to multi-member bodies. Those are more relevant to staff here at the town hall, the many employees paid employees that we have here in the town. They have to kind of balance that question sometimes when they're asked to perhaps do more than one thing, or there's more than one department that wants to use their services. That's something that gets triggered, and they take a look at that. Appearance of a conflict of interest. That's different than having a direct or indirect financial interest in a matter. Appearance is when if a reasonable person knew information that you know about a particular applicant, and a reasonable person would assume that you can be unduly influenced, then you need to step down. That's the appearance rule. So that calls upon you to make a judgment call, and but most of us know when there is an appearance, and it's something short of a legal conflict under the participation rule, but one which reasonable people might think that you could be unduly influenced and you need to step down. If you need guidance on something like that, always you can contact the town manager's office, who can, under the statute, ask if they deem necessary that town council actually give an opinion, so you have it ahead of time. The request to town council is confidential. However, the response by town council is public, and it's filed in the office of the town clerk. So when you make that type of inquiry, even though it's a confidential inquiry, keep in mind that the response will be a public response that is filed with the town clerk. You have another option. The Conflict of Interest statute allows you to make a call directly to the Ethics Commission. They always have, at least during normal business hours, 5 days a week, an attorney of the day on. And if you don't get them right away, they'll call you back. That conversation is confidential, and the advice they give you is confidential. Doesn't come to the town clerk. It's just for you. And then if you go to a meeting and, armed with that advice, decide to say that you contacted the Attorney General's office and they gave you the following advice, then the Attorney General is free to speak to that if a member of the public calls and asks about it. If you don't share that advice with anybody, you just decide you don't need to for whatever reason, and somebody calls the Attorney General's office, they will not share the response that they gave to the general public. So that's the rule. If you use their advice publicly, then your file at the Attorney General's office is public. But if you decide not to use it publicly, then that's a confidential communication between you and the Attorney General's office. And sometimes it makes sense, both in terms of timing, rather than waiting for a written opinion or otherwise, to call that hotline. So you have that option.
If I could also add, Mike,
Absolutely.
only because I've used this on a couple of occasions with calling town council and getting a memo, but one thing he did indicate early on, if I felt, or any of you as a committee member feel there may be a direct or indirect financial interest in a matter coming before you, all you have to do is say, I recuse. You don't have to tell anybody what the reason is. It's frankly none of their business. I mean, people can put two and two together, we're a small town, but all you need to do is say, Mr. Chair, I'm going to recuse, and that's all you need to say.
Good point. That's absolutely correct. No reason need be given. Finally, there's one other area that is not in 268A, but I always kind of mention it, and that's the question of personal bias. If any of you have served on a jury, and most of us probably have had jury duty, you know that a judge will always tell you, they'll ask a series of questions, and do you know the people involved? Do you know the attorneys involved? Is there any reason why you can't be objective about the matter that's going to come before you? If you're on a regulatory board and you're going to make a decision, and you know that you harbor a bias one way or the other on the issue that's coming before you, or with the folks that are going to be presenting or in opposition or whatever, that isn't addressed specifically in the Conflict of Interest statute, but my strong advice to you is that you exercise good judgment and step down if you feel that there is a reason that you can't look at a situation and be unbiased, by all means. Because again, if it turns out to be a controversial matter and gets into litigation and there are depositions or whatever, bias is fair game and it can come out, and so much better to, if you know that's the situation, just recuse yourself and step back. So that's the bias one. Quickly here, a couple of final items. Liability insurance, you're all covered under the town's liability insurance, particularly those of you on regulatory committees. If you see the certified mail come in the mail and you see a suit filed in one of the appellate courts, either the Superior Court or the District Court or the Land Court, appealing a decision that you've been involved in and alleges that you've been arbitrary and capricious. I mean, sometimes they look at that and say, geez, what am I doing? You are insured. The town covers any expense, first of counsel, and secondly, of any, if it turned into a damages case, provided that you were acting in the course of your jurisdiction as a member, you're covered under that particular policy. So I do want to assure you all that the town covers that. Couple things about email. Email is probably the greatest area of unintentional, in 99 out of 100 cases, unintentional violation of the open meeting law. And it occurs with board members emailing each other on issues that are before the board. And innocently, it goes from a five-person board from 1 to 2, and all of a sudden 3, and they're talking about it. That's deliberation. Why is it deliberation? Because you've got a quorum involved. You have a five-person board. If 3 people see the email and they're exchanging views on it, then that's a meeting under the open meeting law. So best on email to other members to save simply for administrative matters. Is such and such on the agenda? Yes, no. Are we meeting Saturday? What time is it? Do we have an on-site somewhere? Is there a copy of this report somewhere? Those kinds of things are all fair game. But, gee, I plan to say this on item number 4. What do you think? That's the kind of thing that just gets us into a jam. And even if it's with one other person, as soon as you get a quorum, it becomes, quote, deliberation, and becomes a violation of the open meeting law. And so I see that not on a regular basis anymore. I used to see it on a regular basis, but people are really becoming aware of what the rules are with email, much more so. And even where I do see it, in most of those situations, it turns out to be an innocent thing that somebody just kind of wasn't thinking, and the email took place. The second comment about email is when you're emailing having to do with business on the committee that you're working on, it's a public document, and you should be sending a copy to the town's public email server. So why is it important to send it to that server? Because if the town gets, as Kevin alluded to earlier, a Freedom of Information request for documents, which people have a right to do under the statute, the town should be able to go to their public email server and get whatever emails are relevant to that issue. And if you've been emailing in your capacity as a member of a committee and not sending it there, there is a likelihood that you may be asked to look at your own email account and produce those documents. And so it's much better to kind of keep, if you send everything to that particular public email server, you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about your own email account. Much better thing to do. But those are public records. And so keep in mind when you send them, somebody may have a right to a copy of it.
And that's in the guide, and Kelly, you might want to just remind them, it's just a CC to a simple email address called
You're going to ask me that? Commail.
ComMail.
Commail, COMMAIL @town.orleans.ma.us.
Just send a copy there, and it's there, and don't have to worry about it again.
So what this does is, over the course of, say, you serve on our committee for 3 years, and a FOIA request pops in, a Freedom of Information Act, they want, and it may be specific, every committee member, scrub your computer for anything having to do with this matter. If you've copied ComMail on everything, you can say, the town already has it.
Yeah.
That's
so-
much easier than spending 5 hours scrubbing through your computer.
Yeah, through your emails, trying to figure out, geez, did I send this?
Right.
Was this a committee thing? Was it a personal thing? It's hard, and it just makes it easier. You've got enough things to worry about being on a committee. As Kevin said, the town certainly welcomes your volunteerism, but if you play by a couple of these particular rules, it saves headaches down the line for everybody. So that's where I'll stop, but I'm happy to take questions and.
A most important regulatory board is coming
Yes.
to the,
Wouldn't say that. Jerry Mulligan, the ZBA. This is on the email, Mike. Since you imposed this new rule on us, this 14-day requirement, and our decisions being filed, just kidding.
Kidding, right.
Just kidding.
That's a rule that's in the statute.
I understand, but it was.
I'm just reminding you what's in the statute, not
I
imposing
know
it.
that, Mike. I was just teasing you because, we hadn't known that until. Our process, now my understanding is the decisions do not need to be approved by the committee.
It needs, the decision itself, no. The vote has to be approved.
Oh, yeah, the vote. of
With the
course.
findings,
Yeah.
but the actual decision itself can be drafted and signed by the chair as part of that, and then filed.
Right, okay. Now, it has been I think it's really as part of the collegiality of the board and that we share the decision before it's filed. And since we have this 14, we had a nice process, which always resulted in the 15th day being the day we filed. So now that to do the 14 days, what I'd like to do is send the decision out by email, ask the board members to sign off or approve it or make any comments, or just silence being consent.
Yeah, that's problematic, Jerry. We'll have to come up with another logistical way to do it. The easiest way to do that is to try to figure out how you, if you want to show it to the board and you have it on an agenda, that agenda should be on the 13th day. And I know that's difficult because you got 2-week meetings.
Right.
You know? And so oftentimes an answer to that is that you could continue the matter without taking a final vote. And you could say, we've made these findings, this is our vote, and however, we would like to see the decision, so we ask the chair to bring it back, put it on the agenda, and at that point, a final vote will be taken to adopt that decision. And if you do it that way and save your final vote of approval until then the 14 days wouldn't start running until then. Makes it a little bit longer for the applicant sometimes, but that's an option. And
I don't mean to be argumentative, but since the board doesn't even have to approve it, I could file it the next day. And
You
the board
could.
doesn't have to be approved.
you could.
But
There's no requirement that it be approved.
Right. And they're not really approving, and we don't take a vote.
Right.
It's just shared so the board understands and they feel a part of the process.
Right, but an email asking them to review it and sign off on it, or say it's okay, that's a dilemma. That's a deliberation, unfortunately, under the open meeting law.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Good question, thank you. And Hardy, I see your hand up, so we'll get to you just after a couple questions here, please.
Okay. Peter Allgaier, Transportation and Bike Race. Both of you stressed the really rigidly transparent content of each agenda item. So does that mean that we can't have an agenda item called other business, which then something comes up in the meeting or is purely informational that, wasn't described in advance of the meeting?
You can have an agenda item, and a number of boards do, to discuss items that may be brought as agenda items to future meetings. And the chair might ask and elicit that. And then those items would be brought back on an agenda that themselves would meet the open meeting law. That's
Right.
okay. And if that's what you're talking about, you could list a discussion of potential items for a future meeting. Yes.
Or something informational to say, for example.
Or informational.
Okay.
Right, or the other thing I've seen other boards do is, just as select board has public comment, other committees might want to choose announcements.
Yeah.
Where someone might say, hey, did you hear Chatham got a
Okay.
bike path grant? Just as a piece of information, but you would put that under announcements.
Okay. Thank you.
And right, it's just an announcement.
That's it. There's no conversation going down, any kind of deliberation. Jenny and, Jenny Farber, come on up. And Hardy, after Jenny, I'll call on you.
I want to thank you for having this meeting because I think I've forgotten more than I ever knew. Can I do a couple of quick
Sure.
ones? On the email going to the town server, if I, for instance, write a note to Mike Salitro and say, how do I get in touch with Mike Ford and set up an appointment? Does that go to the
Mail.
ComMail? So content doesn't matter if it's a question, it just should go.
Yeah, no, it should. It's just the fact, what's determinative is, are you sending the email in your capacity as a committee member?
Okay.
If you are, just ComMail.
Yes, because otherwise I wouldn't need your help. A conflict of interest question. I have, suppose, hypothetical. Suppose you have a member who is going to recuse. I think I know the answer to this, but a member who is going to recuse because that member's company is representing a property owner. Can that member of the committee then represent the property owner? And I think what you're saying is no.
That's correct.
Okay.
Any member of the committee stepping down can't then represent somebody in front of the committee.
So you wear one hat in any given meeting?
Correct.
One is a question suggestion. Would it be possible to have on the committee page scripts? I love scripts, CRIPTS, for executive session motions, for public hearing motions, open the meeting first and then open the public hearing or whichever, and election of officers, which is always interesting.
So some canned motions there.
Yeah, some canned motions.
Good idea.
Just
Yep.
to be available. And if I could, no, the other question, I will probably talk to you about at some point. It's about the public hearings and multiple public hearings. So thank you.
Thanks, Jenny.
Thanks.
There is a section in the handbook, that I think we beefed it up a little bit, convening a meeting. And it gives you, it's not totally like all-inclusive of what you were just
Right.
suggesting, but it does tell, call the meeting to order, announce that the meeting's being recorded, introduce all your people.
That's a perfect script.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great script.
It's on page 6, yeah.
Yeah.
Page 6,
Yeah.
and then adjourn, move to adjourn.
Right.
And actually, on that, Mia and Peggy had said that they've noticed, one of the things that they've noticed a lot is meetings are not being appropriately called to order or appropriately adjourned, because they watch, they record everything, and so they're
Right,
seeing it, and they
right.
say one common theme is that people aren't opening and closing appropriately, and even if they're moving to adjourn, the vote isn't being completed. It's just move to adjourn. Okay, bye.
Yeah,
and then that's
no,
it.
I
know?
hear you.
So,
I think, yeah, I think I already do that kind of script because there's already so many moving
Yeah, yeah.
parts. But I find if I have scripts, then I just pull them out and I don't have to think about.
Keeps you organized.
Yeah, it keeps
Great
me
idea.
organized. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, Hardy.
Hi, Hardy Truesdale Open Space Committee and liaison to CPC. I have a liaison question.
Sure.
I'm getting mixed answers on whether I am allowed to discuss a project that I hear at the CPC committee with fellow open space members. I may be getting this wrong, but it sounds like I can't go back and discuss this. I can only give the information I was given, and I cannot give an opinion or anything else. I just want to clarify that.
So Hardy, I'm just thinking back to when I was sitting on CPC and provided updates to the select board. So say, for example, in your case on open space, you could add or request the chair at open space, add an agenda item that would clearly show, you are going to provide an update on CPC project activities, something like that. So that is specific enough that, again, by the CPC guidelines or policy book, you act as yourself in taking votes, but at the same time, if you feel it's helpful to inform your fellow open space committee members and get their take on things, not saying it's going to unduly influence you, that you just bring it up. So that's one way. Is that getting at what your question is?
Yes, because we do have that on our agenda
There you
every
go.
meeting.
And
So that helps a lot.
count,
It's all kind of new to me,
I'm
so.
seeing a nod from town council, so Mike agrees?
Good way to do it.
Okay. Joan wants to get up too.
Thank you very much.
Sorry. I think you triggered a follow-up from CPC, so Joan's, I'm glad you're here, Joan, too.
Thank you. No, this is not about CPC. This is about emails. We just had a public forum, and someone wanted to give out my home email, and I don't want my home email being given out, but it was very hard for these people to know where to send the letters of support or not support, and we were happy that we have Jennifer, but I'm wondering, is there a different general email instead of the COM email that other committees can give? Because like on the library, we don't have a hired person that works at the town. And so it's her email address, which is also not fair. So I'm hoping there could be some place that's more of a general mailbox that everyone could send their letters into.
We don't have one yet.
Yeah. I know you sent an email a few weeks ago on this. I did forward it to staff. Molly, we didn't get an answer for tonight, but let's look into that.
Yeah, and that was more, can we have one if we're chairs, but maybe there's a general mailbox
Right.
that we could just tell everyone to send their letters into.
I think the concern with that would have to be specific to each board and committee. Some committees do have that. I believe zoning board of appeals has a specific, and it's not to a person, it's
Right, so if we had a specific one per committee, it would be really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, that's something that can be done, and it does give you some privacy on the personal side of your email life.
Great, thank you.
And just to show that we can do this, early on in preparing the workshops with the task force on the residential tax exemption, if you followed the presentations, the last line said, RTE questions go to this email. So it allowed everything to be collected in one spot, which saved Brad from getting emails versus other people, because, it would have been a nightmare. So good suggestion, and
Okay.
we'll get to it.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, sir. Back in the room. So,
Hi, Brian Smith, Cultural Council Chair. While I was sitting back there thinking about this, I might have come up with the answer in my own head, but I was thinking a little bit about what we were just talking about as far as like additional items on the agenda. And if we're talking about this as a public record, if you take good notes in the minutes, wouldn't something like that, like if you had additional items and you took good notes in the minutes, wouldn't that sort of solve the problem of having a relatively vague term on the agenda if you had it kind of covered in the notes that you took in the minutes?
Unfortunately, it's the agenda that controls. So the open meeting law is all about notice. And so
Right, because you needed people to be able to know what they're voting for and what you, and.
Well, no,
right?
no.
Or
no,
what
it's
you're
not
going to be
s-
discussing.
What you're going to be discussing and potentially voting on.
Okay.
That's the key.
Yeah, and that was the thought that came to my head, but I was up late watching the Patriots game last night and I didn't come to my head until it was a little
Well,
bit
it was
too
a good
late.
result anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And
Unless
just,
you're a Buffalo fan.
to follow up on the email, I think something like that would be fantastic, especially for us on the Cultural Commission, because my personal inbox has been getting inundated lately with people replying for what they got for grants and whatnot, and so I think a town email would be fantastic for that.
yeah, and just, Brian, thinking in terms of the many things that, may come up just in discussion of your committee, because you're thinking everything from arts and crafts and things, but you might, just say grants update,
Right.
But you got to give the public enough understanding of what you're going to be talking about so they can contribute if they want to.
Sure, fantastic. Thank you.
Good. Other questions? Please, sir.
Hi, Mark Kaminsky, Council on Aging. One quick question, just curious, does recusal break quorum? If that person is needed for the quorum?
When you've recused yourself, you're no longer can be counted for the quorum.
So it does, okay. And my main question is about, again, open meeting, confused about open meeting and email. So the idea is that in open meeting that you're not only, the discussion is not only public, but the public is has to have a way to contribute. So my question basically is, that would mean that you couldn't have a deliberation amongst all the committee members in between meetings, even if you CC'd the comm mail.
No, you can't do it.
So-
Commail,
So even though it's public, because it's comm mail, but because the public can't contribute to the discussion, then that's not allowed. Is that correct?
right, the meeting is not deemed to be open. A meeting by email is not deemed to be an open meeting.
Okay.
So it doesn't meet the other requirements of the open meeting law. So you're correct, you can't do it that way.
You
Thank
got
you.
it.
The ComMail is just a repository. It's
Right.
not
Right.
published in any way.
Thank you.
Bill, come on up. Thanks for all these questions. This is great.
Bill Weeble, Historical Commission. The makeup of the Historical Commission by whatever has a member of the Orleans Historical Society, of which I am one. And so when we are at the commission reviewing CPC requests of the Historical Society, must I recuse myself?
You're probably not, and although each situation factually needs to be examined, but putting that aside for a second, just a general response. If you're not going to be getting a financial
Correct.
lift one way or the other, and the Historical Society is a properly listed nonprofit corporation under the laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, then it's very likely that you may not have to recuse yourself.
Thank you.
Happy to look at it more closely. There are a couple of bases you have to touch with the nonprofit and so forth, but there is a way to do that.
All right. Thank you.
And again, Bill, and for anyone listening, and again, as Mike said, very case specific. So when you do call council, I know in my case with the Orleans Conservation Trust, the select board does act on things like conservation restrictions. What you'll hear me always say is I'm fully disclosing. I do not believe that I have a conflict in this matter, and I believe I can vote. So Mike's advised me about disclosure can actually save the day. All right. Any other questions? So I have just one ask for all of you. There's cookies, there's food, there's cider Molly prepared and pulled together, so please make sure.
All the apples myself.
Oh, right.
Better drink.
All right. So at 6:15, we will call this meeting to an adjourn.
Yeah.